Okay then, Crazy Christian Conspiracy Theories 2B, Freemasons. This is a follow-up to 2A, of course. Really? Oh, really? I was gonna do this as a debunk of garbage about Freemasons, the Illuminati, Bilderbergers, Stonehenge, whatever. I've just decided to change it completely and just let Bill tell you about a whole bunch of rubbish that isn't true at all, and I guess just the fact that it sounds so stupid speaks for itself. Just want to start with the most ironic statement I've found that he's made, which is...
You see, but there's enough truth in it to sell it.
So there's enough truth, well, there isn't any truth in what he says, but there may be enough that sounds true for him to be able to sell his books and videos and DVDs and speak in front of audiences. Something true there? There might be something true in what he says. Who knows?
Anyway, I got more and more into these things. Very, very strange stuff going on. At one point, I'd gone through different levels of initiation in ceremonial magic, and I'd done some very powerful rituals. And I had this experience. I had happened to go home to visit, because this time we were living in Milwaukee. And I'd gone home to visit my folks who lived in a little farm town in Iowa. And I was staying in my old bedroom. And for some reason, Sharon hadn't come with me.
Okay, here's the part where he talks about his transformation out of the body experience, whatever, is travelled to one of the moons of Saturn, where he has an encounter with a dark trapezoid creature thing. In one interview he says it's a dream, and another one he says he actually had an out-of-the-body experience. So, you know, believe it or not. Believe it or not.
And all of a sudden, I felt like I was lifted out of my bed, carried through the roof of my bedroom, and I was sailing through the sky, through the stars, to the moons of Saturn. Now, that's pretty weird. And mind you, I was not on any drugs at this point. No funny cigarettes or recreational vegetables whatsoever. And I ended up landing on this moon of Saturn. And there was this obscenely bizarre-looking temple there. It was all totally black, totally out of whack. The angles were all wrong, spikes sticking out of it. It looked like a loathsome, diseased kind of black thing crouching on the plains of this moon. And I was told to go in, and I went inside, and there was this gentleman there who was my occult mentor, and he was wearing a white robe, and he kind of glowed in the dark like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars movies, you know. Well, anyhow, he says, "Welcome to the Cathedral of Pain." Now, somehow that didn't sound very good to me, but what could I do? I was out in the middle of outer space, you know. And so I walk into this thing, and it's an enormous thing like a cathedral, just huge, except instead of stained glass windows along the walls, there was these, like, imagine like giant aquariums, floor-to-ceiling aquariums, full of some kind of fluid in this green light bathing them, and except instead of pictures or whatever, floating in these two aquariums on both sides of the room were countless naked dead bodies. Mutilated, horrible looking, you know, just floating there, including dead babies, dead children, dead adults, the whole bit. And I was just getting horrible feelings about this. There was this altar which was shaped like a trapezoid made out of girders in the middle of the room, and there was this huge throne made out of steel girders in the far side of this cathedral, kind of like if you were in like a Anglican or Catholic church, you know, in the rear. Well, what happened was I was told to lay down on this altar, and they tied me to this altar. And this is all happening in this dream. Was it a dream? I don't know. And partly because I couldn't get a job in Dubuque. It was a bad period in the economy.
Right, you can't get a job in Dubuque. Now, I just want to point out, he's going to say near the end of this episode that he sold his soul to the devil for 7 years of all the wealth and all the women and all the wine that he could ever have And yet when the investigators investigated his personal life, found out that he had mundane jobs like a newspaper deliverer and things like that. So, you know, if you do sell your soul to the devil, try and aim a bit higher, you know.
And so we had class after class after class where we were teaching people witchcraft. And we were the ancillary stuff too, you know, astrology, tarot cards, mediumship, parapsychology, astral travel. And we just, you know, we were virtually a little free university. We'd have a semester and we'd have about 10 or 15 people. We'd train them and then we'd run them through. And then and I see you can only have 13 members in a coven. And so we set up 2 or 3 different covens, and Sharon became a witch queen, which means someone who has a high priestess who has several covens under her. One of the people in the coven at that time happened to have a dad who was the junior warden of a Masonic lodge in Heartland, Wisconsin. Now, a junior warden is like one of the top 3 officers in a local Masonic body. And so I thought, well, this high-level druid, the Grand Master of all druids in North America, whose name, oddly enough, was Eli, he said if I ever had an opportunity to join the Masons, do so. So I had said, well, can this guy get me into the Masons? And so he did. And you see there, that's my certificate for, I don't know how well you can see it, but all of these things are in my books if you want to see better documentation. On March 24th, 1977, I was finally raised to the sublime degree of a Master Mason, which is the top of the Blue Lodge degrees. Subsequently, I went on and went through York Rite, went through Scottish Rite, and went through the Shrine. So basically, I did essentially everything one could do in Masonry and even some stuff that most people can't do in Masonry, as we'll see later. So I went through the first degree of the Church of Satan and then made it all the way up to 2nd degree. You'll notice there, that's my certificate. I was made a warlock in the Church of Satan. You'll notice there down at the bottom is Anton LaVey's autograph. I have the dubious distinction of having his autograph. I want to note that in the last paragraph, it says, the Church of Satan, having passed before the Council of 9, order of the trapezoid, by all the powers of hell, so it is done. That's kind of like saying amen. It gets kind of fuzzy here, folks. Now here you see me in my ceremonial magical garb. I was involved in all sorts of high-level magic, including thalamic magic, which means magic that's based on the works of Aleister Crowley, who was the most prominent black magician of the last century, and Enochian magic, which has nothing to do with like Enoch in the Bible. It's a very complicated thing that was brought forth by Dr. John Dee, who was the original 007. Have you heard of Dr. John Dee? He was Queen Elizabeth I. This is way back 400 years ago. Queen Elizabeth's premier spy. And he was also a high-level occultist, an alchemist, and a ceremonial magician. And she would send him into Europe to spy on different countries, and he would send missives back, and he'd always sign his name 007. That was his little code designation. That's where Ian Fleming got the thing for James Bond. So
the word I've invented for this type of nonsense is guyography. All fake stuff is in honor of the world's greatest fiction author, Gail Riplinger, who warns all Christians about the dangers of the NIV, NASB, the New King James, NRSV, NAB, etc., 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 the Phillips and the Living Bible and blah, blah, blah. Not one page, except for the page numbers, not one of these pages contains any facts. So it's the most remarkable piece of fiction work that's put forward as fact. Second only to Bill Snivlin. Are you taking Gail off the throne? I don't know. No, Gail's still the queen on the throne of nonsense, gibberish, incoherent babbling nonsense in the name of Christianity. And these are all the connections as to why all the Bible's evil. What fun that is. Anywho, back to what we're talking about. John Dee, the real John Dee, not the fiction one that Bill talks about, was an English mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, occult philosopher, an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. He devoted much of his life to the study of alchemy, divination, and Hermetic philosophy, but he was also an advocate of the England's imperial expansion into the British Empire, a term he is generally credited with coining. There's nothing on this page about him being 007, the original James Bond. There's nothing on here about it influencing Ian Fleming. Sorry. Move on.
Anyhow, see all this interesting trivia you're picking up here? Anyway, at this time I was also a member of the Brotherhood, and that's hardcore Satanism. See, if you think of it like this, you could think of the Church of Satan as kind of like marijuana, and hardcore Satanism is like cocaine or acid or heroin or something. So it's like a gateway into deeper, darker levels of the occult. And along the way, I had to sign my name in the black book. I had to sell my soul to the devil. I didn't know the devil already had my soul, but, you know, I made a pact. And the pact was that for 7 years, I would serve Satan faithfully.
Not like it's schizophrenia or some illness or some mental illness of some kind. Anywho, this is the part where I'm sure there's a version of this where he says right here, starts talking about how he had to marry an angel to move into higher levels of the Illuminati. I can't find the original video clip of where he says it, and I've spent 9 hours watching that crap one, Ex-Vampire. I've watched 2 hours. This is 2 hours of nothing but lies. So I'm not going to waste my time on it. But anyway.
That he would have me body, soul, and spirit. He would give me anything I requested, wine, women, song, drugs, power, whatever I wanted I could have. In exchange for that, at the end of 7 years, he'd get to kill me and take me to hell. What a deal. How many of you want to sign up? You got to realize. Now, what's the Illuminati? Well, we're going to talk about it a lot tonight, but basically it's the mother of all conspiracies. And it means literally a society of illuminated men and women who have received the light of Lucifer. Because remember, Lucifer means the light bearer, right? So anyway, I was walking around in this state of white fog in my brain, and I was getting more and more tempted to do evil things, more and more. I mean, it was like whatever vestige of humanity was gradually being eaten away by this cancer of evil. So then I got to the point of what's called the abyss in high-level magic, where you have to cross the abyss, and then you transcend good and evil, and you're on the final approach to becoming a living God. And in order to do that, I had to make a choice. In the system of magic I was working, I had 2 choices. I could either be a werewolf or a vampire. Now, a lot of you might think, huh? You know, this guy's been, you know, eating too many stale pizzas or what? But no, I had to make that choice. And I knew people who'd been into lycanthropy, which is the technical medical term for being a werewolf, and I knew it hurt a lot. I mean, you think about it. I mean, your nose starts growing out, and you grow like 2 feet taller, and this and that and the other thing. So it's not very fun. Plus, the stuff you have to do to become a werewolf, the rituals are so unspeakable, I won't even offend your ears by telling you what they are. So I'd always kind of had this fascination for vampires anyhow, because they're kind of sexy and everything, you know. So I thought, okay, I can do that. I can be a vampire. So part of the deception that drew me into all of this. But that's a whole other talk. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. My second last step was I became a Mormon, and let me tell you how that happened. Mormon? You know, what's this? Well, as I said, I was into this vampire thing. I was getting, you see, vampirism, let me tell you, there's a reason why Yahweh God tells us do not drink blood.
And finally, to finish off, back to my favorite subject, Harry Potter. This is another 2-hour thing where they point out the evils of Harry Potter, and out of all the 2 hours, there's nothing that contains any information, specifically proof, or whatever you want to call it, against Harry Potter. So I've just picked out this silly bit where he uses the occasion to talk about how he used to be a warlock.
Dumbledore. Now, Albus Dumbledore is the good guy, supposedly. He is the parent figure to Harry. This is kind of the white-haired, wonderful gentleman. He's a great man. This is what he has on his business card. It says, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster Albus Dumbledore. Order of Merlin. First class. Grand Sorcerer. Chief Warlock. Supreme Mugwump. International Confederate of Wizards. That's his business card here. Explain, what are those words again mean?
I don't know what a mugwump is.
I bet you know the rest of it.
Yes, yes. A warlock is, of course, a high-level male wizard. And of course, Merlin, obviously, is the best-known wizard in the history of English literature. We're going to define all these terms in a little bit. But obviously, this guy is a very heavy-duty wizard. In fact, he's represented as really the most powerful wizard, the only wizard that Lord Voldemort fears.
Got a question for you. You told me that warlock is, I mean, to your fellow witches back then, warlock, to the witches now,
yes,
that's not a popular term to witches.
No. White witches do not use the word warlock. That's a common misconception, because the word warlock comes from an Old English word meaning traitor or betrayer. Satanists use the word warlock. Like when I became a second-degree member of the Church of Satan, I was given the title of warlock. So it's interesting that she would use that term.
It's kind of like she blurs.
Do you think that Mr. Ollivander chose a good one for Bill? I mean, the big question is, do witches and wizards from the States have to travel to London to go through the wall to get... Oh, they can apparate. Sorry, Bill apparated. Oh, there you go. You got me there. To Diagon Alley to get his cauldron, his owl, and his wand. Yeah, okay. Cool. Reality meets fantasy 101. Bye.